He's a no-show. He never was one of us. He just wanted the contract and the notoriety, but he didn't want the...
War and Sapp is finally exposing why NFL players never vibe with Keyshawn Johnson. From locker room arrogance to on-air clashes, Keyshawn's ego left scorched trails across the league. And now, Sapp's confession is rewriting his entire image. Let's unpack this. The ignition point, Sapp versus Keyshawn, when pride met pride. War and Sapp was already a Tampa Bay legend long before Keyshawn arrived. A 7-time Pro Bowler and Defensive Player of the Year, Sapp personified everything the Buccaneers stood for: grit, loyalty, and dominance. By 1999, Tampa's defense was every quarterback's nightmare. Yet one problem haunted them: no offensive punch. So when Keyshawn Johnson, the flashy New York Jets wide receiver and former #1 overall pick, hit the trade market in April 2000, Sapp was thrilled. In his mind, Keyshawn was the missing spark. The Bucs traded 2 first-round picks to land him, and Sapp personally lobbied Tony Dungy to seal the deal.
Keyshawn comes to me and says, listen, dog, me and you unite. We can put this thing together. You just need a little offense. And, mind you, I just lost the game 11-6. Oh, I get you that 7 points, Cub. We can do it.
It looked like the Star Brotherhood, but that dream collapsed fast. Sapp later revealed that while the Buccaneers sweated through off-season drills together, Keyshawn was nowhere to be found. No team hangouts, no conditioning sessions, no buckball brotherhood. That single claim wasn't a jab. It was a wound. To Sapp, it screamed betrayal. He had vouched for Keyshawn, believing he'd make them unstoppable. Instead, it felt like Keyshawn wanted praise without participation. And Sapp, he was never one to swallow his words. Lose his respect once, and it was gone forever. Their temperaments were polar opposites. War and Sapp was the enforcer, loud, proud, Florida-born, and ready to brawl for his team's identity. He embodied old-school football, where respect came from sweat, not sound bites. Keyshawn Johnson, meanwhile, was a media-made star. Drafted first overall in 1996 by the Jets, he was famous before ever catching a pass. Designer suits, brand-level speeches, zero humility. That gap between blue-collar authenticity and self-branding shaped their downfall. When Keyshawn released his autobiography, Just Give Me the Damn Ball, after his rookie season, it was an omen. He trashed teammates, questioned coaches, and accused quarterback Neil O'Donnell of faking injuries. The message was clear: Keyshawn didn't play politics. He would always speak his truth, even if it meant torching relationships. So when he entered Tampa's locker room years later, that same fire collided with Sapp's authority. Where Sapp earned respect through loyalty, Keyshawn demanded it through confidence. 2 alphas, 1 locker room, 1 inevitable explosion. By 2002, the Buccaneers finally broke through under John Gruden. They steamrolled the league and annihilated the Oakland Raiders in Super Bowl 37. It could have been the ultimate redemption story. Sapp's defense dominating, Keyshawn holding his ring, and Tampa celebrating its first ever championship. Yet even in glory, their bond was broken. Sapp would later admit that while most of the team connected through shared work ethic, not for Keyshawn Johnson. While others pushed through sweat and grind, Johnson stayed orbiting the spotlight, not the squad. To Sapp, that wasn't leadership. It was vanity. There's a difference between mandatory and voluntary mandatory. He mocked. I'll take my chances on the voluntary mandatory stuff. That jab captured exactly how Sapp saw him. Gifted but detached. And even as Super Bowl champions, the tension was impossible to miss. Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Ron Barber, all future Hall of Famers, stayed quiet, but even they admitted privately, Keyshawn wasn't like the rest of us. The next season, that quiet rift exploded publicly. By mid-2003, John Gruden, who had once defended Keyshawn, hit his breaking point. Their relationship had completely deteriorated. Gruden accused him of being selfish, divisive, and disrespectful toward the staff. In November, the Buccaneers announced that Keyshawn Johnson was being deactivated for the rest of the season. A shocking move in the NFL, especially for a healthy star. Officially, it was called a mutual decision. In truth, it was a firing wrapped in PR. Even Sapp, who lived for confrontation, didn't bother defending him. When asked, he just shrugged. To him, it was inevitable. Years later, Sapp summed up the whole mess bluntly. He wanted the contract and the fame, but not the work. What once felt like a personal feud became, in his eyes, simple history. That same year, Sapp left Tampa Bay for the Oakland Raiders, while Keyshawn was traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Their shared championship became a bitter footnote in a story of pride and resentment. Fast forward to 2008, Warren Sapp had retired and stepped into TV, bringing that same raw honesty to inside the NFL. Keyshawn, already at ESPN, was polished, smooth, and still soaking up the limelight. Then came the broadcast moment that reignited everything. Sapp later revealed producers had told him to roast Keyshawn on air to stir drama. I was new to TV, he admitted. Didn't know how it worked. My bad, Key. But the internet doesn't care about context, only sound bites. That clip blew up. Every headline screamed. Warren Sapp calls Keyshawn Johnson a B** on national TV. Fans assumed the rivalry was back. Keyshawn saw it as another insult. And social media, always starving for chaos, picked sides instantly. Keyshawn didn't stay quiet. In 2023, after old clips of Sapp resurfaced on Jason Whitlock's show, he unleashed a Twitter rant. Warren Sapp, please stop lying. I would never in a million years follow your sorry ass ever. You're an embarrassment to society. Sorry, and I mean sorry. Please keep my name out your mouth. Fake. Sad. Go get some help. That's when their feud entered its modern era. It wasn't about hustle or credit anymore. It was about pride, image, and how each man defined himself within NFL history. Sapp brushed it off, saying Keyshawn was just name-calling. Ask my teammates, he posted on X. The truth don't need defending. For fans, it was deja vu. Two retired legends still trading blows through microphones instead of helmets. And while Sapp's beef remains the loudest, it's far from unique. His words, selfish, fake, not one of us, echoed what many had whispered long before. Back in New York, veteran wideout Wayne Krebit quietly told reporters that Keyshawn's ego killed chemistry. Even Bill Parcells, the coach who gave up 2 first-round picks to get him, later admitted Keyshawn was brilliant but exhausting. And when he finally left Tampa, respected vets like Derek Brooks just called him what he was, a different kind of cat. Not terrible, just different. Over and over, the pattern stayed the same. Keyshawn Johnson would enter a locker room radiating charisma and confidence, only to leave it drained and divided. That never meant he lacked greatness. It meant his greatness always carried a price. The reason the feud with Warren Sapp stands out so sharply is because it exposed the same cycle that haunted Keyshawn his entire career. He wasn't hated for being lazy. He wasn't hated for lacking skill. He was hated because he refused to play by football's unspoken rules. In the 90s and early 2000s, there were boundaries. You didn't publicly question your quarterback, you didn't call out your coach in print, and you definitely didn't use the press as your personal PR weapon. But Keyshawn did all that, proudly. The rivalry between Warren Sapp and Keyshawn Johnson was never just about personality clashes. It symbolized two worlds colliding, the blue-collar warrior code versus the modern superstar ego. Sapp stood for discipline, loyalty, and team-first grit. Keyshawn embodied self-expression, fame, and individuality. Both were right in their own way, but neither could coexist with the other. Their feud became a timeless lesson in how ego, ambition, and pride can turn champions into rivals. Even decades later, their echo still lives in NFL locker rooms. But Tampa Bay was far from the only battlefield. Sapp wasn't the first, and he definitely wouldn't be the last, to call Keyshawn out. From the Jets to the Cowboys, his reputation shadowed him everywhere. What began as swagger evolved into a full-blown pattern, from early Jets drama to league-wide defiance. Long before Sapp ever spoke out or John Gruden ever benched him, Keyshawn Johnson had already become one of the most polarizing names in football. He wasn't just another wide receiver. He was the blueprint for the modern NFL diva. Gifted, outspoken, and absolutely unwilling to play politics. To understand why so many legends, from coaches to Hall of Famers, clash with him, you have to rewind to where it all started. New York City, 1996. That's where both his legacy and his infamy began. Most rookies enter the NFL quietly, proving themselves through humility. Keyshawn Johnson entered with a pen. After being drafted number 1 overall by the New York Jets in 1996, he arrived with unmatched swagger. The first wideout taken first overall since Irving Fryer in 1984, and he made sure everyone knew he earned it. Then, after just one season, he dropped a bombshell, his autobiography, Just Give Me the Damn Ball, co-written with Shelley Smith. It exploded like a grenade in the Jets' locker room. Inside, Keyshawn took shots at nearly everyone, his quarterback, teammates, and coaches, even the team's entire culture. He accused Neil O'Donnell of faking injuries to protect his position, blasted Rich Kotite for being too soft, and said most of his teammates lacked hunger. He even declared himself the only player with real heart on the roster. The New York Times called it one of the boldest rookie tell-alls ever written, noting it scorched nearly every veteran bridge. The book wasn't infamous because it lied. It was infamous because it told the truth loudly in an era that punished honesty. In the conservative world of 1990s football, speaking out meant career suicide. The fallout was immediate. Veteran receiver Wayne Krebit, a fan-favorite underdog who had clawed his way from walk-on to starter, was especially offended when Keyshawn mocked him in print as the team's mascot. Krebit's quiet discipline made him the anti-Keyshawn, a symbol of humble excellence. Soon, reporters started asking the question that tore the Jets apart. Who was the real leader of the team? The loud superstar or the silent grinder? The tabloids went wild. Wayne Krebit's nickname became Mr. Third Down. Keyshawn's? Meeshawn. And that label stuck. For all his talent, his mouth always seemed louder than his stats. At first, teammates tried to defend him, but even those who liked it began to tire of the constant criticism. He's got superstar talent, one anonymous Jet told New York Daily News, but he acts like everyone else is beneath him. It didn't help that the Jets finished 1-15 in 1996, with Keyshawn as their only highlight. To fans, his arrogance was entertainment. To teammates, it was exhausting. Then came 1997, and everything shifted. Bill Parcells, the two-time Super Bowl winning legend, took over the Jets. Known for rebuilding disasters and crushing egos, Parcells seemed like the perfect match for Keyshawn. Early on, they clicked. Parcells admired confident players, and Keyshawn admired a coach who wasn't afraid of him. The team transformed, reaching the AFC Championship game in 1998. For a brief stretch, it looked like Keyshawn's redemption arc had begun. But, as always, peace and Keyshawn couldn't coexist for long. By the end of 1999, old problems reappeared. Skipped practices, public jabs, and frustration over play calling. Parcells allegedly told team execs, "He talks too much for a guy who hasn't done enough yet." Despite back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, the locker room was done with the drama. Parcells, who had once traded for Keyshawn and defended him, finally gave up. In April 2000, the Jets traded Keyshawn Johnson to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 2 first-round picks. A shocking move that said everything. Even icons like Parcells had had enough. Tampa was supposed to be his reset. The Buccaneers were stacked on defense, but starving for offense. They needed swagger. They needed a spark. They needed Keyshawn. And at first, it clicked. He became their top receiver, helped Tampa reach the playoffs, and by 2002, he was a Super Bowl champion. But behind the scenes, the same pattern resurfaced. Keyshawn clashed with John Gruden, the fiery new head coach who had replaced Tony Dungy. Gruden was as intense as Keyshawn, demanding, loud, and unrelenting, and the two were bound to explode. By mid-2003, their relationship completely imploded. Gruden accused Keyshawn of being selfish and disruptive. Keyshawn fired back, calling Gruden dishonest with his players. The chaos peaked when the Buccaneers officially deactivated Keyshawn for the rest of the season, a stunning decision for a healthy star receiver. Years later, Gruden told ESPN, "It's a shame, but some players just can't buy in. You either love football or you love attention. And there's a difference." To Warren Sapp, that quote said it all, confirming what he'd been warning for years. Keyshawn's biggest rival wasn't another player. It was his own ego. When the Dallas Cowboys signed Keyshawn Johnson in 2004, fans hoped he'd finally mellow out. He was older, wiser, and stepping into one of the NFL's most disciplined franchises. But within a season, it was deja vu. Keyshawn began feuding with quarterback Vinny Testaverde and later clashed with coaches over offensive priorities. He publicly complained about being underused, insisting he was too good to be a decoy. Even Bill Parcells, now coaching Dallas, couldn't control the storm. The same man who once fought for him in New York now faced the exact same chaos all over again. Reporters close to the team said Bill Parcells would often roll his eyes whenever Keyshawn Johnson's name came up during meetings. And when Terrell Owens joined Dallas in 2006, bringing another outspoken superstar into the mix, Parcells didn't hesitate. He released Keyshawn rather than risk juggling two massive egos in one locker room. The message was clear. Keyshawn wasn't a locker room cancer. He was a personality type the league had simply grown tired of managing. By the late 2000s, Keyshawn Johnson's resume looked both elite and infamous. Over 800 receptions, 3 Pro Bowls, and a Super Bowl ring. Yet nearly every coach and Hall of Famer who worked with him shared the same sentiment. Keyshawn was brilliant, but exhausting. Even among his own fraternity of receivers, players like Randy Moss and Chad Johnson, distance began to grow. In a 2009 interview, Moss subtly hinted, "Some guys talk leadership, others live it." Everyone knew who he meant, a quiet jab at Keyshawn's self-declared captain status. The verdict was unanimous. Respect his game, tolerate his attitude. Ironically, Keyshawn's impact didn't fade with his controversies. It multiplied. He became the prototype for an entire era of diva receivers. Terrell Owens, Chad Ochocinco Johnson, Antonio Brown all carried a piece of his DNA. The showmanship, the defiance, the refusal to stay silent. But even they admitted who walked first. In his own autobiography, Terrell Owens confessed that Keyshawn paved the way for receivers to speak their mind. Yet he couldn't resist a follow-up dig. The difference between me and Keyshawn is I still showed up on Sundays and dominated. He talked like me, but didn't produce like me. That one line perfectly captured how the next generation viewed him. A trailblazer, yes, but not a conqueror. By 2007, Keyshawn officially retired from the NFL and joined ESPN as an analyst. It was supposed to mark a transformation from loud superstar to thoughtful veteran voice. But some things never changed. His trademark confidence and sharp tongue carried over seamlessly, sometimes too seamlessly. On air, his opinions cut deep, not just with viewers but with colleagues. He clashed with fellow analysts like Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, and even ex-players on NFL Live, many of whom felt he looked down on them. One ESPN producer put it bluntly, Keyshawn doesn't argue to learn, he argues to be right. That mindset made him great television, but also reignited the same perception that had haunted his playing days. The belief that Keyshawn Johnson hadn't changed at all, just swapped his helmet for a microphone. The pattern was unmistakable. Whether in New York, Tampa Bay, Dallas, or ESPN, admiration and irritation followed him everywhere. He wasn't universally hated. In fact, many insiders respected his intelligence and leadership. But for legends who valued humility over headlines, Keyshawn represented everything they resisted, a player who prioritized self-expression over submission. And while today's NFL celebrates personality and branding, back then, that kind of independence made you an outcast. Even after football, Keyshawn couldn't outrun his own reflection. From ESPN feuds to clashes with modern stars, the same confidence that once electrified locker rooms now split studios apart. In the final part, we'll break down how Keyshawn's ego transformed him from star analyst to media villain, and why. Even now, legends still can't stand his name. The fallout from ESPN stardom. From NFL greatness to being frozen out. Keyshawn Johnson's transition in 2007 looked like a masterclass in reinvention. When he hung up his cleats, it wasn't retirement, it was a rebrand. He wasn't leaving football, he was entering television. Articulate, camera ready, and unapologetically outspoken, Keyshawn had everything a major network could want. Within months, ESPN handed him a multi-year contract to appear on NFL Live, SportsCenter, and eventually First Take. It was supposed to be his redemption arc, the story of the brash wide receiver evolving into the wise, seasoned analyst. But soon, everyone realized the truth. Keyshawn hadn't changed. He'd just swapped shoulder pads for a microphone. At first, ESPN couldn't get enough of him. He was bold, polished, and confident. One of the few analysts who would spar evenly with Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless. But as viewership climbed, tension did too. Behind the cameras, producers quietly described him as difficult to manage. He refused to follow talking points, never softened his takes, and often derailed debates to lecture his peers. According to one staffer, Keyshawn doesn't argue for the show. He argues because he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. That reputation didn't stay behind the scenes. It spilled right onto the airwaves. During fiery debates, Keyshawn rarely backed down, even when the numbers weren't on his side. If Stephen A. called him delusional, he doubled down louder. If Skip Bayless tried to provoke him, he'd hijack the entire segment into a speech about football IQ. The audience was split. Some loved raw honesty. Others saw the same arrogance that had followed him since the locker room days. And as his TV profile rose, so did the list of people who clashed with him. Not teammates this time, but co-hosts. One of his earliest rivalries came with Michael Irvin, another former wideout turned analyst. Irvin, known for emotional, heartfelt commentary, once told NFL Network viewers that Keyshawn was Hollywood without the work. It wasn't meant as a personal shot, but it struck deep. The two represented opposite philosophies. Irvin wore his heart on his sleeve, while Keyshawn wore his confidence like armor. Even years later, Irvin admitted he believed Keyshawn overestimated his leadership and underestimated how much people resented him. Then came the quiet friction with Chris Carter and Randy Moss, both Hall of Famers who shared screen space with Keyshawn during NFL coverage. Moss, normally calm and reserved, once joked off camera, "Man, I can't tell if Keyshawn's giving takes or giving orders." It wasn't bitterness. It was fatigue. Everyone respected his football mind. Few could tolerate the delivery. But no rivalry defined Keyshawn's ESPN era more than his ongoing tension with Stephen A. Smith. Though they respected each other professionally, their on-air chemistry was volatile. Stephen A. was a dominant presence on First Take, and Keyshawn was the one man who refused to play second fiddle. Their debates often crossed into real hostility. Keyshawn rolling his eyes, Stephen A. cutting him off mid-sentence to regain control, both men visibly frustrated. Clips from those moments still circulate online today, usually captioned, "Stephen A. humbles Keyshawn again." Fans ate up the chaos, but insiders saw something deeper brewing behind the entertainment. Behind the cameras, it wasn't performance, it was friction. The tension between Keyshawn Johnson and Stephen A. Smith wasn't scripted drama. It was ego versus ego, live and unscripted, every single morning. By 2023, ESPN began reshuffling its lineup under polished corporate terms like budget cuts and strategic realignment. But insiders whispered a different reason. Keyshawn's larger-than-life personality had become too much for the new direction. In June 2023, ESPN announced his departure as part of a wave of high-profile layoffs. Just like that, his multi-year, six-figure deal, rumored to be worth nearly $18 million, was gone. For a man who built his image around control, this one hit deep. Soon after, Keyshawn signed with FS1 Speak alongside Joy Taylor and Emmanuel Aiko. It wasn't as big as ESPN, but it gave him what he valued most, freedom. And with freedom came full-force Keyshawn. On Speak, he doubled down on his veteran authority persona, using every segment to school younger analysts and criticize today's stars. He called Aaron Rodgers selfish, claimed Tom Brady's leadership was overrated, and said Dak Prescott was mentally fragile. It was classic Keyshawn, bold, confrontational, and utterly unapologetic. But with the spotlight came backlash. Former players fired back fast. Tyreek Hill mocked him for talking about greatness he never achieved. Richard Sherman, never one to hold back, called him a dinosaur who doesn't get today's game. To fans, it was deja vu. Another locker room. Another round of people tired of hearing Keyshawn talk down to everyone else. By now, the pattern was undeniable. Across decades, generations, and platforms, Keyshawn Johnson had built a singular reputation. Brilliant, articulate, and exhausting. Even those closest to him admitted it. Bill Parcells, the same coach who once traded 2 first-round picks to acquire him, told interviewers, "Keyshawn's a good player, but you spend half your time coaching him and the other half managing him." Jon Gruden was blunter. He's all in until the first time you tell him no. Different men, different eras. Same conclusion. They respected his mind, admired his skill, but couldn't stand the constant battle that came with him. So, why does the name Keyshawn Johnson still stir irritation among NFL legends? It's not jealousy. It's not bitterness. It's philosophy. For figures like Warren Sapp, Michael Irvin, Bill Parcells, and Jon Gruden, football wasn't just a game. It was a code: loyalty, silence, grind. But for Keyshawn, football was a platform, a stage to speak truth, challenge hierarchy, and define identity. To the old guard, that looked like betrayal. To Keyshawn, it was evolution. That's why they'll never see eye to eye. Keyshawn believed honesty was leadership. His critics saw it as selfishness. Both were right, and both were wrong. In many ways, Keyshawn Johnson helped shape modern sports media. Long before Twitter or podcasts, he was one of the first athletes to seize control of his own narrative. He didn't wait for headlines to explain him. He was a headline. Players like Richard Sherman, Cam Newton, and Deion Sanders would later follow his blueprint. Unapologetically outspoken, media savvy, and fearless about backlash. The difference? They balanced charisma with charm. Keyshawn never cared to be liked, and that was both his strength and his curse. His honesty made him unforgettable. His ego made him untouchable. And that paradox is exactly why, decades later, people still debate the legacy of Keyshawn Johnson, the man who never stopped talking, even when the world stopped listening. Whether he was misunderstood or just misunderstood on purpose depends on who you ask. Strip away the noise, the feuds, the sound bites, and the swagger, and what remains is simple: a man who refused to conform. Keyshawn Johnson didn't want to be coached, corrected, or controlled. He wanted to be heard, and in a sport built on hierarchy, that alone made him a rebel. Even Warren Sapp, in later interviews, seemed to ease up, not toward Keyshawn himself, but toward the realization that maybe their feud was just 2 men too proud to bend. In one interview, Sapp reflected, "You don't judge who gets in the Hall of Fame. You celebrate them." Maybe that was his quiet way of saying he'd moved on. Maybe that's the only apology the world will ever get. Today, Keyshawn Johnson stands as one of football media's most recognizable voices, a businessman, a father, and a survivor of an era that never quite knew what to do with players like him. But among NFL legends, the ones who played before the era of brand deals, personal podcasts, and player empowerment, he'll always be remembered as the man who broke the code. Because long before player empowerment became a buzzword, Keyshawn Johnson was already living it, loudly, unapologetically, and with the same defiant confidence that made the world love him and the locker room hate him.